Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Ron Jeremy and some sexual allegations, some rape charges, sexual battery, what have you. That's been charges that have been filed against him, and you might want to confirm that as far as exactly what he was charged with. I honestly do not remember that 100%, but I believe it was something like with rape and or sexual battery. He had like 4 counts on him total. I'm going to talk a little about some natal placements in this chart and some transits that might be tied into this. Now, first thing off is Ron Jeremy is a Pisces with an Aquarius moon and Aquarius ascendant. I don't know if many of you have noticed this lately. There seems like there's been a lot of issues like with Pisces being born around that time, around like Ron Jeremy's like March 12th, and there was Joe Bugle, I think his name was a former NFL coach. He was like March 10th. And remember that, and he passed away recently. You remember that girl, and I'm trying to remember her name exactly. It was something like Saya Kakar, or she was a some in from India. She was like an internet TikTok sensation. She had at least 1 million followers on something. I don't know if it was TikTok or some social media site. But there's a lot of things. Seems like for Pisces is being really affected very adversely lately, and I think, yeah, I mean, I think that the common denominator, what it is that transit Neptune is hitting their Pisces sun. I mean, because remember that Neptune can be about dissolving and dissipation, and you're talking about the sun in astrology is the life, the vitality of the person. It could literally evaporate life in some instances for people, like it did. I think played a role with her name, and I don't know if I'm saying her name 100% right, Saya Kakar, the internet sensation from India, uh, or it could actually, or it could really evaporate a life, figuratively speaking, the life that the person is currently living. You look at like Ron Jeremy right now. Transit Neptune can be also about infamy and scandal, and it can be. And the thing about it is, it's also imprisonment as well. And the thing about this, and Neptune can be associated with suicide, and I think that played a role with that, what I told you about before, that India internet sensation. But what it is Neptune situation. Neptune is obviously very strong. It might be a generational planet, but people cannot undermine its significance. And some other things I want to talk about Ron Jeremy. Okay, first, as far as his chart, having the breaking down Pisces Sun, Aquarius Moon, and Ascendant. Well, the Pisces Sun, of course, could be connected with wanting dreams and fantasies fulfilled. It could be, like in this case, like the pornography, doing things with filmography, and then having the Moon in Aquarius, maybe bringing us into like television somehow, something with computer, internet related. I mean, I know that's when he started out. That wasn't the case, but I'm sure you could find a lot of those videos, of course, online on the internet. And then you're talking about the fact that Aquarius is rising, flavoring that in a very unusual, unorthodox type of manner, to say the least, because obviously the porn field is something that most people won't do. I would consider it something a little bit unusual, even bizarre, unorthodox, a way that this is being, that energy that I described as being flavored with for Ron Jeremy. Now, for one thing I noticed, what stands out, he's got a number of transits hitting his 12th house of imprisonment and incarceration. He's got transit Pluto in the 12th house right now, and Pluto can be connected in some negative manifestation. It can be associated with rape, with I would say even sexual domination. And I'm not saying that he definitely did this or anything. We remember that a man has to be convicted until before he's actually, you can say he committed a crime. I am strongly suspicious, though, that he did commit this. But anyway, The thing about it is too, and you're talking about Pluto being in the 12th house of incarceration, so that right there, that could be an indicator of being incarcerated for something that is associated with rape. And the fact that transit Jupiter is in his 12th house as well. So I've talked about in previous videos, Jupiter, though it can be very benign and benevolent, could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand. It's very paradoxical. It could be something where you're talking about where it could expand some despondency in some cases in isolation, in solitude, and seclusion. And it's interesting when this went down, that transit Saturn was very close to his natal Aquarius ascendant. And Saturn, though may not really be connected with the law, it is associated with authority. So it's an indicator that authority came back and caught up with him at this point in time. Now, apparently, they were going to charge him at an earlier time for this, I believe, but they didn't quite have the details to actually convict him at that point in time. And it's interesting, him being a Pisces. Pisces can be a little bit nebulous and unclear. It's not surprising they weren't able to get the full details on him. Pisces is not about details anyway. I'm being a little bit flippant as far as that goes, though. But the thing is, and going back to the transit Neptune on his sun in Pisces, that could be really the dissolving or dissipation of one's life, and in this case it could be that life in the pornography, in the film industry. I don't know if he was currently making any more films at this time. He's like 67 years old. I don't know if he was still doing it, but the point is, even if he's not currently making pornographic films, it still can be an indicator that that life that he was associated with might be diminishing. There was something where he was actually, where somebody had dropped him. I don't know if it was somebody that was like an endorser of him or something. You may want to confirm that online or whatever. But but he's already lost some support at this time, as far as that goes. And it's just a shame when you hear about people of renown, these prolific people. They do these. I mean, assuming he did it. If he did this, I mean, it's an indicator where people think, because I think they're of some celebrity status or stature, that they feel that they're invincible or impervious to certain situations like this. And sometimes what happens is when it's unveiled, and if it's found out that they actually committed these kind of crimes, whether it's a salacious one, what have you, that they might make an example out of a person like him and give him the maximum sentence. So it's just something to think about if you're a celebrity person who happen to be seeing this video, people. Now, another thing I noticed at this time as well is looking at this chart, is that he also, when I'm looking at it, notice on his chart is that transit Mars right now is very close to his natal Mercury, and that could be an indicator where you're talking about Mars can be, I mean, you could say it's connected with something of a sexual nature, and the fact you're talking about hitting his Mercury, something that was communicated at this time. So it's not surprising that there was something that was communicated at this time that we found out about. Whether it's actually true or not, of course, I'll let the court and the judicial system ascertain that. But and it's something of a volatile, of a perhaps volatile nature. His Mercury is an Aries, so something of a volatile nature communicated, and in the fact you're talking, well, really Mars is the volatile planet. So it's really, you blend in the fact that Mercury, his natal Mercury is in Aries, coupled with the fact you're talking about Mars hitting it. That's an indicator right there that something of a violent nature may have been communicated at this time, and something associated with sex being Mars. So maybe that's how it panned out. Mercury and Aries, something volatile communicated, something of a sexual nature, transit Mars close to the Mercury. So anyway, now I'm just trying to remember anything else that was in his chart at the time that it could manifest in this situation. Now, what happened was when he was actually first apprehended, I don't remember where the moon was in at the time. I don't think it was quite in Leo at that time, but interestingly enough, this actually took place, I think, shortly, at least shortly, perhaps shortly after we had that big solar eclipse uh, in Cancer. And the thing is, too, hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that. I'm back. Well, another thing I noticed, well, but what I was going to get at is that the transit moon in Leo had hit his south node sometime between the time of the apprehension and the day of the video day I'm making this video. When you have transit moon hitting the south node, even though it's going to hit it like once a month roughly, you're still talking about, it can have certain significance in some cases, and you're talking about when you have when the south node is involved in a transit, it can reflect what we're going away from. And the fact you're talking about the moon transit moon in Leo, perhaps going away from a position where you were in the public and you were really strongly in the spotlight and gained a lot of notoriety and recognition, where those feelings of grandeur also might be going away for Ron Jeremy at this time as well. And at this time as well, he also had transit Mercury at this time very close to his natal Uranus. This could be about the news coming of a very unusual nature. The zodiac sign Cancer, excuse me, in a negative manifestation could be about promiscuity and looseness in practices that are sexual, and this is something that you're talking about also in his natal chart. I want to get at. I remember something too, that he has Neptune conjunct his Saturn in his natal chart, and the thing about it is in Libra, the sign of the arts, that this could be in really acting, and you're talking about that's actually could be a good placement for a career in filmography, because you're talking about Saturn associated with the career. Neptune can be about filmography, but could also be an indicator where the law at some authority was going to catch up with him for something that would actually imprison him, because you're talking about Saturn could be connected with authority. Neptune can be associated with prisons, imprisonment, incarceration. So those are some, I mean, looking at his chart, those are some ways that that may have panned out, I would say, for him. And, hopefully he didn't do this, but I do believe that he likely is guilty based on, the transits I'm seeing in his chart. And but we'll see. We'll let the judicial system and law, the courts play out and see how it goes. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.